In deep night, a tuna surfaces carrying a fresh, round crater in its muscular flank. The wound resembles a stamped circle with smooth edges surrounding a missing plug of tissue. No observer witnessed the strike, and the attacker has already vanished into black water. The geometry looks engineered, yet it was produced by a small shark using specialized jaws. If you saw only the scar, its symmetry might seem more precise than any living encounter. Real bites vary, however, and the famous perfect circle is an approximation shaped by anatomy and motion. CookieCutter sharks remove rounded plugs from animals far larger than themselves. The wound records a brief attachment, a twisting cut, and an escape completed within seconds. Understanding that sequence means reconstructing mechanics from bodies, scars, specimens, and rare direct observations. The investigation begins with the crater, then descends toward the predator's daytime habitat. By dawn, the wounded tuna remains near the surface, while its attacker sinks into deeper darkness. This vertical separation explains why scars are familiar, but attacks are seldom seen. The missing tissue is evidence of feeding, although a scar alone cannot always identify the exact species. Several wounds may heal, distort, or overlap before researchers examine the host. The opening circle, therefore, becomes a clue whose strength depends on condition and context. CookieCutter sharks belong to the genus Isistius, a group of small deep-water sharks. The best-known species, Isistius brasiliensis, occurs widely in tropical and subtropical oceans. Its body is cylindrical, with a short snout, large eyes, and unusually formidable lower teeth. The lower teeth form a continuous cutting row, while smaller upper teeth help anchor the mouth. Fleshy lips can create suction against a relatively smooth surface. Together, suction, anchoring, jaw closure, and body rotation can remove a rounded tissue plug. This mechanism is the mainstream anatomical interpretation supported by wound shapes and jaw structure. Descriptions sometimes imagine a flawless circular cookie, but natural cuts are often oval, ragged, or incomplete. Host movement, body curvature, strike angle, and interrupted attachment all alter the final mark. The shark does not carry a metal punch, and geometry alone should not erase biological variation. Verified victims include large fishes, sharks, rays, marine mammals, and other pelagic animals. Marks have also appeared on submarine equipment and soft external materials used underwater. Those incidents demonstrate biting behavior, but they do not prove that machinery was mistaken for living prey. Chemical, tactile, visual, or electrical cues could contribute during a close approach. The relative importance of each cue in wild attacks remains uncertain. CookieCutter sharks possess a dark collar and light-producing organs called photophores on the underside. Bioluminescence may help reduce the silhouette seen from below through counter-illumination. Contrasting dark color has also inspired a lure hypothesis, suggesting it resembles a small prey silhouette. That lure interpretation is plausible, but not conclusively demonstrated during natural attacks. Deep living predators often face limited observation, making attractive explanations easier to repeat than to test. Stomach contents and bite evidence indicate ectoparasitic feeding alongside consumption of smaller prey. Here, Ectoparasitic describes removing tissue without usually killing the much larger host immediately. The host pays an energetic and injury cost, while the shark gains a concentrated meal. At dusk, the cookie cutter begins rising hundreds of meters toward animals using upper layers. Vertical migration follows a daily rhythm documented from captures at different depths and times. You can picture changing pressure, temperature, and light, but instruments must establish the actual path. The shark's large oily liver contributes buoyancy, reducing the cost of moving through the water column. Near the surface, darkness creates access to fast hosts that would be distant during daylight. Potential victim produces movement and electric fields as it passes within close range. The shark approaches, contacts the body, and presses its flexible lips against the skin. Upper teeth grip, while suction, helps maintain attachment during the first instant. The lower cutting row closes into tissue as the shark rotates its body. The host's forward motion may contribute to the shearing action, although exact mechanics vary. The shark departs with a plug, leaving a crater whose outline reflects both jaws and struggle. This cue-action adaptation consequence sequence converts a momentary encounter into stored energy. It also explains why a small predator can feed from an animal it could never overpower. Yet much of the sequence comes from anatomical inference, experimental observations, and wound reconstruction. Wild encounters have rarely been recorded in sufficient detail to time every movement. Claims about universal spinning, suction strength, or host assistance should therefore remain qualified. Fresh wounds are most diagnostic before healing changes color, depth, and edge shape. Older scars can become pale depressions, whose original dimensions are difficult to recover. Round injuries from other causes may resemble cookie cutter bites when photographs lack scale or tissue detail. Researchers consider wound position, size, contour, host species, and repeated patterns before assigning cause. Even then, attribution may remain probable rather than certain. The famous scar is strongest evidence when paired with recovered tooth marks or directly documented attack behavior. Reports of bites on humans are extremely rare and require the same careful diagnostic standards. Rarity prevents broad conclusions about motive, conditions, or changing risk. The evidence supports a specialized feeder, not a supernatural cutter patrolling every dark sea. Its precision is impressive, precisely because natural mechanics operate under unstable, moving conditions. For the cookie cutter, the removable plug solves a central deep ocean problem of scarce, dispersed food. Large migratory animals become moving resource patches, crossing otherwise lean water. The shark needs only brief contact, reducing the danger of prolonged struggle with a powerful host. After feeding, it can descend, digest, and wait for another nightly opportunity. If you followed the tuna instead, the same event would appear as injury, drag, and infection risk. Many hosts survive and carry multiple healed scars, showing that bites are often non-fatal. Survival does not mean harmlessness, especially when wounds affect swimming or become infected. Repeated tissue loss could impose greater energetic costs, although those effects are difficult to measure. Scars provide ecological records on animals photographed far from the predator's capture depth. They reveal interactions linking deep mesopelagic communities with surface-swimming fishes and marine mammals. This connection helps explain why cookie cutters matter despite their small size and hidden lives. Their nightly rise also participates in the enormous global movement called diel vertical migration. Animals transport carbon downward through feeding, respiration, waste, and predation across depth layers. The cookie cutter's exact contribution is unknown, but its behavior belongs within that larger biological exchange. Hosts may alter speed, grouping, or depth after attacks, though direct evidence for such responses is limited. Predation risk can shape behavior even when mortality is uncommon. Human technology occasionally enters this interaction when soft sonar coverings or cables receive bite damage. Engineering records can document location and material failure, but they cannot reveal the shark's intention. Protective materials reduce vulnerability more reliably than stories about deliberate attacks on machines. The circular mark thus connects anatomy, vertical migration, food webs, and practical design. Hidden interactions still shape pelagic food webs, host health, and the design of vulnerable underwater equipment. Low-light animal-borne cameras on potential hosts could reveal approach angle, attachment, rotation, and release. Timed camera deployments across several depths might connect fresh wounds with the water layer of impact. Careful examination of wound margins could distinguish Isistius bites from other rounded injuries. Laboratory mechanical models may test jaw geometry without claiming that models reproduce every wild struggle. Mechanical models may also test whether counter-illumination leaves the dark collar conspicuous from below. Direct observations must distinguish approaches towards simple contrast from responses specifically involving prey-like silhouettes. Long-term photographs of known hosts could measure healing rates and repeated exposure. Those records might reveal where and when encounters cluster across migration routes. No single method will explain sensation, mechanics, and ecological consequence simultaneously. When you encounter an immaculate-looking circle, measurement should come before admiration. The edge may preserve a rapid struggle rather than the operation of a perfect biological tool. Some attacks will remain unidentified because healing removes precisely the features diagnosis requires. Near midnight, another large fish passes above the rising shark. The predator closes, attaches, and twists before the darkness conceals both animals again. You return to the crater, knowing its rounded form is real, while the exact violence that shaped each scar often remains unseen.